Well, welcome back to the shores of Lake Washington, everybody. Let's set the scene for you. If you've been watching the Blue Angels, you are now looking at, well, the fastest thing on water. You've seen just about the fastest thing in the air, and the Blues' performance is completed. They'll be flying back to Boeing Field, and then, as Lieutenant Kevin Cass was telling us, they'll take a couple days off and relax. Meantime, the boats are going back into the water here pretty quickly for Heat 2A, which is coming up in a moment. Let's go back live to Boeing Field very quickly if we can. There you go, live pictures. The Blues are touching down at Boeing Field after another successful Seafair performance. Fans here loved it. You know, it was difficult to hear with the roar of the jets going by, but the crowd here loves it. The applause for the Navy Flyers as the Diamond Group comes in and the two solo pilots. Meantime, the fans are now stretching, getting up, disrobing perhaps, getting ready to get into cool in the water and get set for some more boat racing. As we said, we've got Heat 2A coming up, scheduled to start at just about 1 o'clock. We've had the 10 to the 5-minute gun a few moments ago, so we'll talk more about that. And the crowd along the I-90 corridor there and the floating bridge have been watching the performance, so they'll be opening up the I-90 bridge now in just a little bit. And now also the boats can move from the very south end of the lake down by Seward Park and can move into position outside the buoy line. But from here I can see Coast Guard boats are also holding them back just a bit, so they won't be too much in the way for the boat races. Meantime, Tony Ventrella is back from a lunch break and he's down in the pits. Tony?
We get set for 2A. We have Donald Lawton, the assistant crew chief for Graham Trucking. You guys had a nice run, finishing second, and then son of a gun, you get stuck with the butt again.
That little red boat just keeps popping into us, I tell you. But we have a good chance again. We're going to go back out, give it a good run, and I think we can keep right up in second, but we'll try first again.
And the boat's running good?
Boat's running great, yes.
Okay, that's all we need. I know you have a great driver, so good luck.
We have a great driver. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Donna. They're set to go. Graham Trucking getting craned up and just about to go into the water to join the Miss Bud and the rest of the boats in 2A. Steve, back to you.
Tony, I'm a little curious. How many female crew chiefs or assistant crew chiefs do we have in the pits? That's a little unusual, isn't it?
I believe the number is 1, and I think you just saw her. Donna Lawton is the assistant crew chief for Graham Trucking, and she's doing a great job. And you'll see a lot more of her today. Let's, we going over to Bill?
Sure, Bill
over
Rocky.
To Bill Rocky.
Jimmy King and Jimmy, third place, first heat. Now you got the Budweiser.
Gonna stick it in there and see what we can come up with.
I heard you might have changed the prop here.
They were doing a little bit of work, and we'll see what we come up with.
So we'll just call it a little bit of work.
We'll see it there.
All right, Jimmy King, driver of the Elam, ready to go out there and see if he can take on Dave Vilwalk.
Interesting, these drivers don't have a lot to say immediately before climbing into a boat and going 170 miles an hour across the water. I can see why. We're going to watch them fly across the water. It's Heat 2A. Coming up, the Texaco Cup at Seafair continues.
Heat 2A is brought to you by your local McDonald's. Did somebody say McDonald's? By Sprint PCS. Experience the clear alternative to cellular today. And presented for Seafair by Haviline. Add more life to your car.
Time now to set the field for Heat 2A as the Texaco Cup continues here on Lake Washington, and that looks to be Bernie Little hanging over the cowling and probably talking to his pilot, Dave Vilwalk.
Yes, Bernie's always famous for giving you the last few instructions and what he thinks you should do. You can be rest assured Dave will do what he wants to do.
The Miss Budweiser already a heat winner at 149 miles an hour. This is a particularly fast race boat. Stay out of trouble, Dave. That's the advice I'd give him if I were Bernie.
Tony Ventrella's in the Bud pit. What kind of advice is being given, Tony?
Well, Steve, so far they've quite clearly had the luck of the draw. The Miss Budweiser with an easy win in Heat 1A and a pretty good draw in Heat 2A. I'm guessing Bernie is probably telling Dave, listen, if you get this thing won, maybe save a little. I don't know, Mike, is that bad advice?
Not bad advice at all. I'd go with that, save a little bit, but also stay out of trouble. There's a lot of traffic in this one, and you really don't need to mix with it.
One of the boats that will be the traffic out there is the Grand Graham Trucking. And let's talk a little bit more about Graham Trucking and Mike Weber at the controls.
Well, he's been very impressive in his first showing. I think if he was to get anything from a second to a third in this heat, they'd have to consider that a very hearty accomplishment.
If you remember the Miller American, that's the same hull, believe it or not. And I think that Mike Weber's doing very, very well with that boat, with the equipment that he's got. He's been an up-and-comer. Watch for him to stay out of trouble and get some more points. That's what he's looking for in the final.
The Miss Elam, the U-16 boat with Jimmy King at the controls.
Well, they need to step it up a little bit. You know, they were one of the fastest qualifiers. They didn't have a great showing in the first heat. I expect Jimmy to step on it as hard as he can. And he really, if he has anything for Budweiser at all, he needs to give him just a small taste of it right now.
That's absolutely the case, Scotty. No question about it. He's got to mix it up with them a little bit. He can't let them run away from him at this point. Got to give a message to those folks, and that's the situation. Bill Rocky.
Here with Sven Elstrom, the owner of the Elam, and pretty good year for you guys so far. You had a good time over the Tri-Cities and running good this week.
In Tri-Cities, we were unbelievable. We come in first in the first heat, second in the second heat, and first again on the third heat, and we come in third overall in the final heat. So you can't expect us to do much better. And now we come in third on the first heat, so now we're going to go out again. And I think we come on this heat, as I understand from everybody, I think we come in second, yeah. Or depends actually who gets the lane. And if we get the inside lane, I mean, we're going to be in front.
So you don't want to try to beat him, eh? You think you can beat Dave here?
I think so. Yeah, I think there's nothing possible. It's a matter of, I think a lot of the driver, we now do this new starting. They start by the clock instead of starting a lane, and hopefully this little boat from Ballard is going to do fine.
All right, well, the pride of Ballard is having a great time down here. Steve, let's go back up to you.
The little boat from Ballard, I like that. Let's talk about the Tweetins RV boat. That's Ken Muscatel at the controls.
Ken had a good run in the first heat. As we said, we pick him as our underdog of the day. He's an overachiever, and I think he's going to give it a heck of a run.
A little off on his start last time, as he mentioned to our reporter, and is going to try to make a better shot at it this time. If he's there at the starting line, he can actually be a bit of a problem.
Bill Wixie.
Roger Newton of the U-14 crew, standing by live with him. And Roger, what kind of adjustments did you make after that third place finish in Heat 1A?
We brought the wing down a little bit so we can get that right sponson down. It's flying a little bit, so what we're trying to do is give him a better ride out there. But everything else is fine. We're just ready to go.
Formulated any sort of a starting strategy for this race as opposed to the last one?
Well, Rick Campbell talks with Ken quite a bit, and what they do is they look at who's going to be in the heat, how they figure that they can do against the competition. You notice in that first heat, Ken went for the inside. He might try for lane 2 or 3 this time.
All right, Ken Muscatel in the U-14 looking to make a run here in Heat 2A. Steve?
And the U-19 with Jerry Hale, there it is. The Chaplin's Bellevue Volkswagen presents Easter Seals, pulls away from the dock as we approach the 4.5-minute mark, Scott.
And Jerry's feeling just a little grumpy right now. He feels as though he got kind of taken out of his first heat, so he has a bit of a score to settle. Jerry's a good driver, a rookie at over 50 years of age last year, which is a pretty unusual situation, but Jerry's a fine driver, and if the boat's got some speed, he'll be in it.
Now, as I'm looking off to my right from our position in the pits, the Graham Trucking boat is not in the water yet. It's in the sling. Am I missing something, Scott?
Well, they obviously have a problem. I saw them cutting up some aluminum. You can see it on a table sitting down there that was there earlier. This would be a tragedy for them because they ran so well, and they need these points.
Now, we're inside of 4 minutes. They have to be in the water at what point now?
At the 1 minute gun. They've got to be in the water. If the 1 minute gun goes out and they're not on the course in a planing attitude, the rules say they cannot race this heat.
It doesn't look like they're moving too fast.
No, it doesn't.
There's just somebody sitting up there, and he has a cast on his leg.
This may wind up being a scratch. They may have run into something that caused them to not be able to make a start in this particular heat, in which case, as you mentioned, Scotty, a shame for them because they had a second behind the Budweiser Heat 1A, and there's no reason, unless it's mechanical, that they couldn't perform well here in this one.
Well, let's check in down in the pits. Tony Ventrella, what do you know?
Well, I think they're having trouble getting a strut lined up is what they're telling me, Steve and Mike Weber. You saw him a few minutes ago standing with his arms folded, a bit dejected and rather upset that the crew can't get the boat in the water. They're still trying feverishly, but they're running out of time, as you guys know.
Wow, that must be tough for Mike Weber, too, standing out on the end of that finger pier, arms crossed, and being able to do absolutely nothing.
Well, he's probably pretty disappointed because we just had the biggest break that we're going to have in the whole day with the Blue Angels and the air show, and they should have found it then, and obviously they just went to put the propeller in the back of the boat. It's on a short shaft. It's only about 3 feet long. It's the last piece that goes in the boat, and they didn't check it, obviously, and then so there they sit. But that's really a shame because that kid drove his heart out.
Meantime, at 2.5 minutes now before the start of this Heat 2A, Mike, the boats are starting to again go through their pre-race gyrations.
They are indeed. It looks like the Miss Budweiser is going to try to stay completely out of any of this and go through the lower corner one more time. Dave Villwock knows that when it comes to speed, he's got all of these guys handled. He hasn't any reason to be worried about most of these fellas. Muscatel probably is in the back of his head, though, Scotty, because he knows that if Muscatel gets a good start, he remembers both Kelowna and Tri-Cities when Ken Muscatel drove him right down into the first turn and actually outpaced him into the first corner. And if he's got anything under the bonnet, he might indeed cause Dave to have to reconsider his starting plan.
Yeah, and Dave's running a little bit late on his start plan as we speak. We're at 140, coming up on 140, and he'll have to get back around to this lower corner before the 1 minute gun.
Muscatel's definitely going to want the inside lane. He has liked it on this course as well as every course that he's played in. Looks like Dave Villwock isn't going to be too awfully concerned about trying to steal that from him. If he does, I think that probably would not be a good move. It looks like he is actually trying to move up alongside of Muscatel, but it appears as though the Bud will stay in lane number 2.
Meanwhile, Jimmy King's in the upper corner once again, turn number 3. He must be thinking that he's just going to cut through the middle of the track and come up and join the field on the back straightaway.
With 1 minute to go, let's go to the pits and Tony Ventrella.
Yeah, apparently a problem with just one bushing that either wasn't where it was supposed to be. Mike Weber's going back into the truck. He's pretty ticked off at this point, as you can tell. You see they're still working on it. Obviously, it's just not going to happen in time for the Graham Trucking for this particular heat.
Circling around. They are definitely out of business. We're inside the 1 minute gun, so Graham Trucking is a scratch for this particular heat. DNS is the way he scored, did not start, and it does indeed appear as though Jimmy King is going to try to scarf off lane number 1 at low speed, and he does pull it off. He grabs the lane. In lane number 2, it'll be Ken Muscatel. In the U14, the Tweetons. In lane number 3, Miss Budweiser, and in the 4 lane on the outside, moving through that corner now, it will be the Bellevue Chaplin Volkswagen presents Easter Seals with Jerry Hale at the wheel. That's how they will come to the line. They're tad on the early side, so the throttle up is a little late. As they do start to stand on it, they're still a little on the early side.
This might be close.
Unofficially, I've got 3 boats across the line too soon, and they would, or at least 2 rather, they would be Muscatel and the Elam. That's what I have unofficially. We'll see whether the officials see it the same way we do. Around the corner, however, it is the Budweiser easily establishing a lead. The other 2 guys backed off their throttles for just a moment, and that was fatal for them because Dave Villwock had a good start. He was right at the money, and so it appears as though he's been able to pull away now, but Jimmy King appears ready to give him some chase from the inside lane advantage. The Elam is in second place and running strong. Easter Seals in third. Ken Muscatel in the Tweetons RV in fourth as they go through the corner. It is the Miss Budweiser pitching just a little bit on the inside boat to the Elam, and Dave Villwock coming to the line with a comfortable 3 or 4 boat length lead, almost a full rooster tail at this point across the line, the end lap number 1.
Jimmy King needs to just hang in there as best he can and then run with this and hopefully not have his lane taken from him, but that's probably going to happen right now.
Bud has the sufficient amount of boat lengths to do so, and he got a little water over Jimmy King. It looks like he has failed. Looks like he's got a problem.
Yeah.
Looks like the Elam's going down dead in the water. He got to restart it again, but he's passed by Ken Muscatel inside, and Jerry Hale got by him also. So the 16 boat, the Elam, in trouble down there, dead in the water in the first corner, and meanwhile a third of a course length ahead of the second place boat is the first place boat coming down to pin. Lap number 2, the Miss Budweiser, and Dave Villwock completely in command in this one, getting a little loose, launching off some rollers. We noticed that as he slows down just a little bit as he crosses the line, a little bit of air getting underneath the race boat. Second place now, and this has been fortuitous for Ken Muscatel. He's been able to move the Tweetons RV Mart into second place, and that's going to be important when it comes to scoring toward the final entry field.
And in third place with the Chaplain's Easter Seals boat. They dearly need points. Jimmy King should have seen that deal coming. You know, that's where the inexperience shows. And he went in the corner way too hard, and he saw that he was going to have overlap. He should have backed out and let the guy go.
He had plenty of lane. The Budweiser left him a ton of lane, but unfortunately he slid out and then just caught that water, just put the fire out. He's restarted again, but he's dead last at this point.
Well, at least he didn't slide out over and on top of him like he did last year.
Yeah, definitely didn't do that. Checkered flag is up for the Miss Budweiser and the winner of Heat 2A. That's the white, excuse me. One more to go for Miss Budweiser. That shouldn't be 3 times around, though. I believe it was. Anyway, in any event,
there might have been a gun jump.
There might have been. I don't think the Bud was involved in it. It looks like there was a gun jump, though, because they only got the white for the Budweiser, getting the white also for Ken Muscatel.
Has the checkered flag, it appears.
No, that was the white.
So then Jerry Hale has it.
Jerry Hale has the checkered flag. He is the winner. Jerry Hale is the winner. He was the only legal. I counted 2. Apparently there were 3, and so Jerry Hale is the winner. He pulls across the line in first place in the Bellevue Chaplain Volkswagen. It presents Easter Seals. That means the other 3 were illegal. All right, so now the battle is for Budweiser for second. The Bud having to go 1 extra lap. It appeared to us, from unofficially, the Budweiser was on the line just at the count of 0, but I counted the other 2 guys across. Indeed, they were. All right, Budweiser gets the checkered this time for second place.
Was Elstrom called for being over 2, Mike? You're on the tower.
Yeah, Elstrom was one of the first 2 over, yeah. So if Bud was over, Elstrom was ahead of him at the start, so he was over also. All right, checkered flag now up for Ken Muscatel. And that'll give him third place points overall.
Boy, that's a pretty wild one.
Well, I got to tell you guys, if I'm Bernie Little now, how angry am I down there in a walk-away race? It should have been to lose a lap and now come up second place to Jerry Hale in the Easter Seals boat. How I don't even use the word disappointed.
Well, given the Elam's position in the boat races, I think, Scotty, you'll agree with me on this one. It wasn't quite a walk-away at the start.
No, it wasn't a walk-away, but they were all way too early. In these preliminary heats, this is how the clock start equalizes the field, and this is why potentially we're going to see a heck of a race today. And you can't push the envelope that hard, especially these prelim heats, because the points are so important.
Bill Wixie is in the pits. Bill?
Standing by with Tim on the U19 crew. You got to be pleased with this. Boy, the start is everything, isn't it?
Absolutely. He hit a real good start, and everybody else was early, and it worked out well for us.
Well, Jerry Hale is coming into the pits as we speak. This is quite an unexpected win in this heat. You guys have got to be just real pleased with the way the boat ran as well to hold on to that lap advantage.
You bet. It was great to have him hit a good start, and the boat ran well. John's pretty pleased too. He's our crew chief, and this is great. Absolutely great.
Terrific. We'll check back with Jerry Hale in just a couple of minutes. Tony Ventrella on the other side.
At the Bud Camp with Bernie Little, this is a heat you guys should have walked away with.
Yeah, well, no, I wouldn't say that. Jimmy King's running real good. And but anyhow, Dave looked like he was doing really good. He came flying in for his start. We knew we were 1 second off on the clock. That didn't bother us. And I don't know. I guess they just got really a little over anxious.
Yeah, but you're still a fan of the clock start, aren't you?
Oh, I'm definitely a fan of the clock start. I think that's great. This is the second time this year in the Gold Cup we jumped one also because the clock was blanked out. We couldn't see it for the water from another boat. But I'm sure he had a good view of it here today, and I'm anxious to see what he says.
Well, I'm sure you are, Bernie. Okay, thank you. There's a lot of racing to go, but Bernie's got a few questions. Back to you guys.
Yeah, Scotty, I expect that he is anxious to hear what Dave has to say.
He'll let Dave know what he thinks. I mean, it's everybody here knows, and you pointed out, Steve, he just has no reason to be pushing the envelope like that. The final heat, you bet, you do it. But in these prelims, and Bernie's probably going to give him an earful.
Bill Wixie is down in the Easter Seals pit with Jerry Hale, and that is one happy pit area.
Oh, you got that right. A nice round of applause for Jerry Hale as he got out of his boat over here. Jerry, you got to be really pleased with that start. Boy, that was everything.
Absolutely. It kind of tricky there for a minute. I let Dave pull me up a little bit, and but this clock start sometimes is a pretty good equalizer.
All right, and right at the start there, what did you do for this start that you didn't do in the first start that enabled you to be the only legal starter?
Stayed out of the U9's tail.
That is an important thing, and that's what will get you a Rookie of the Year award. Last year, the 54-year-old Rookie of the Year. At age 55, you're a year wiser, and apparently that showed.
Well, I don't know about that, but these guys have done a heck of a job on the boat, and if we can continue to improve and make decent starts like this, we'll be in there.
Aside from last week's, or the Tri-Cities consolation win, this is Jerry Hale's first ever heat win in his career. We're going to send it over to Tony Ventrell on the other side of the pits. Thank you, Jerry.
Here with Dave Villwock, we're going to take a look at the start, though we don't actually have a television screen with us, but what happened on the start? 3 boats had the same idea you did, I guess, on that one.
They were a long ways out in front of me, but you know, the last week I was looking at boats out in front of me that I thought were illegal that weren't. So I cut it right on the light, and apparently, you know, I don't know. They're saying they don't have a camera or something now, or the camera's not working. So who knows?
And there's a lot of racing to go, Dave.
Yeah. Luckily, we got 300 points, and we needed to get that for the points championship and for the final. So press on.
All right. Good luck. Thanks, Dave. Over to Bill Rocky now.
Jimmy, 3 out of the 4 jumped.
Well, nobody was going to let the other one go, and those things happen.
What happened down in the turn there where you get washed down?
I got a little bit of water. There was nothing illegal about it whatsoever. Dave had the room. He just closed up the lane a little bit. I took enough water to put out the fire, and that was about the end of it.
Disappointing in a heat like this where probably I guess if all things go as planned, you get second at least, right?
Yeah, and you know, we could have had a pretty decent run with the Budweiser. As soon as I saw we were early, I tried to save it and pulled my foot. Dave just kept on pulling. That's why he got so far out in front of us. But I mean, if we would have been legal and been able to stay into it, it would have been a pretty good boat race for a couple laps.
Jimmy King, thanks a lot. Let's go back up to Steve.
Thanks.
Bill Rocky, here are the unofficial heat results from Heat 2A. And again, until everything is completely sorted out, who was where before, what clock got to what point, here are the unofficial results. We've got the U19, Jerry Hale, and the whole team is happy about it. The Chaplin's Bellevue Volkswagen gets the 400 points for winning Heat 2A. Miss Budweiser second. Tweeton's RV Mart with Ken Muscatelli in third. The Miss Elam Plus Jimmy King you just heard from, and the Graham Trucking did not start, never got off the trailer. And we'll keep an eye on that boat because they were running good in the first heat, couldn't get off the trailer for the second heat. We'll see what happens here as the day moves on. These are the unofficial results, and we'll continue to follow from the officials tower, make sure that this is the way they're going to finally end up here in Heat 2A. 2B is coming up in a couple of moments. We got the Pico American Dream, the Appy and Geronimo, Freddy's Club, and Lumar Window Film, and lots of racing as the pleasure boats move into position after the Blue Angels performance. We'll be right back.
Heat 2A has been brought to you by your local McDonald's. Did somebody say McDonald's? By Sprint PCS. Experience the clear alternative to cellular today. And presented for Seafair by Haviland. Add more life to your car.
On a speed.
Oh, yeah.
Rabel's not back yet. The toss is here.
Welcome back to Seafair. We are going to take a look at this start once again, and we're going to try our telestrator. Now, this is a first for us at Kiro and Scott Pierce, but we're going to roll some video on this, and hopefully we can determine. One of the things that makes it a little bit confusing for us as the broadcasters is they're not announcing it, but you can see here this boat is clearly offending and this boat is clearly offending. This is the boat in question, the Budweiser, being back here.
That's the whole issue, yeah.
Your start line is up over here. Now, as these come, the boat in the inside, which is Muscatel, and the boat alongside him, which is the Elam, are fading. The Budweiser's coming with a head of steam and is actually going to lead this across the... There's your start buoy right there. So you can clearly see the boats.
That's actually
that's the first turn.
First turn, but you were right back there where you first drew the line, Scott. And the question was, obviously, the two white boats, the Elam and the Tweetons, were across the line. They had keyed on each other and they had accelerated up, and I saw about almost 2 seconds left on the clock as they were across the line. I'm looking directly straight across the start-finish line. This is my view.
Here it is. Here's our line
my
right
view.
here.
And there is the Elam now about to go across the line that Scotty is just now drawing. The Elam
Here's
will come on up to the
Muscatel.
line, and then, of course, Muscatel will, and the Budweiser's not yet in the picture there. We have the presentation for the trophy for the end of Heat 2A. Let's go to that now.
Good afternoon. I'm Don Lane with Texaco Haviland. It's a pleasure to be a sponsor of Heat 2A for Texaco Cup. Congratulations to Jerry Hale from the Chaplin's Bellevue Volkswagen presents Easter Seals. Congratulations on winning Heat 2A. Your mic.
Thanks very much, Don. This is quite a tribute to our crew. They've been working long and hard, and I tell you, it just doesn't feel any better than this to be able to show them first place for the Heat. Thank you.
30 seconds. Congratulations again. Yes, sir.
Congratulations,
Jerry Hale, a man of few words, and happy that he wins. Now the official Heat results. Heat 2A. Again, Jerry Hale in Chaplin's Bellevue Volkswagen. U19 wins. Miss Budweiser, Dave Vilwalk in second. Tweeten's RV, Ken Muscatel, followed by the Elam, and Graham Trucking again did not start. Brian Wood has been following all the action out of the log boom. It's been an air show and a boat show and a party kind of day, Brian.
The Armada is now coming in. We're out here on the control line, the outer buoy line just beyond the boom. All those boats that were kept back during the Blue Angels, take a look. It is a flotilla floating in. They're supposed to be keeping it at below wake speed. We've got the Coast Guard out here. We got Seattle Police Harbor Patrol keeping them on this control line. This is where they're going to be rafting up. This is where the parties really get rolling. The people who can't afford the log boom, you're looking at them. They've already been partying, watching on the far side of I-90 Bridge and down south of Seward Park. Now they're here. They're ready for the racing. They're ready to party, Steve.
All right, Brian, and as they close in, they'll close in the end of the course, and that will mean something to the drivers. We'll talk about that and Heat 2B when we come back.
Heat 2B is brought to you by the ultimate place to satisfy all your wants, AM PM. Too much good stuff. And presented for Seafair by Millstone Gourmet Coffee. Fresh roasted taste, whole bean coffees.
Well, the Appian Geronimo has to be considered one of the favorites here today. The boat driven by Mitch Evans. There it is. And let's talk a little bit about Mitch, who's already in the cockpit ready to go for Heat 2B, Scotty.
Well, Mitch has definitely had a good run so far. He's had a first. I think he just wants to continue to lot the points and learn something about this boat. The racetrack is going to change, and he needs to learn that also.
Here are the details about the Appian Geronimo. Mike?
The Appian Geronimo, probably the fastest boat out here on any given moment, to give or take the controversy about N2. We'll tell you about that a little bit later. Mitch Evans is driving a good race. If he can get himself to the line again, get his nose right where he wants to be with that boat speed, he will win again, in the Appian Geronimo.
Bill Wixie's down in their pits.
Yeah, Mitch Evans has a great philosophy about this race. He says, go fast, turn left. I like that. Mitch is going to go pretty fast in this race. He was the winner, of course, of Heat 1B, looking for his second win of the day, on his way to hopefully a finals victory where he hopes to take on the Bud head-to-head.
Bill, thanks. You know, Nate Brown is looking for his first finals win as an unlimited driver. He's in the Miss Lumar. There it is. And they look to be all prepared, do they not?
They're leaving the dock.
They are leaving the dock right now. Mike?
Like the way the Lumar looked in Heat 1B, finishing second behind the Appian. Maybe he's got a little more beans to show up with this one. He's got to take on Mr. Evans once again. In fact, both of the Evans boys, and look for Nate Brown to get in there and mix it up.
Still looking for speed is Steve David in the U2 Freddy's Club.
Well, Steve had a disappointing run the first run. I know his crew chief very well, Tom Anderson, and I spoke with him this morning. I'm sure they swapped another motor into it. Something must have gone wrong, and let's look for an improved performance from Steve.
That was a disappointment. Steve's first heat. He wants to be a factor in this particular race. Limited amount of equipment that they've got, but no limit when it comes to heart and when it comes to the desire to race him. Either Steve David or Jim Harvey, the owner and crew chief of that operation.
Down to that competitive pit at Tony Ventrella.
In Freddie's club, Steve David tried to punch it after a pretty good start in his first heat. Found that the engine had nothing, and Scott, you're right, they have swapped engines, so maybe they'll have a better result this time. Steve, back to you.
All right, Tony. And finally, in Heat 2B is the U100 boat, the Pico American Dream, driven by Wenatchee's own Mark Evans.
Well, what Pico boat are we going to see? You know, we're going to see the one that we ran in Kelowna last week, or we're going to see the one that ran in the first heat?
Scott's absolutely right. It's time to show some cards here. This boat's got to be very fast here, or we can pretty much count them out for the rest of the day.
Have they done the work they needed to do, Bill Rocky?
Here with owner Fred Leland. Fred, disappointing fourth. You got to do better this time, don't you?
Well, we're hoping to do better. We're struggling with a lot of problems. Usually we pull it together at the end.
What did you do here? Did you change anything?
Well, we just made some adjustments, hoping we went in the right direction.
A year ago, tough to top, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was tough to top a year ago.
Yeah, hopefully you can pull it off here again. Fred Leland hoping Mark can go out there and pick up a win here.
And Bill Wixie is in the Appy and Geronimo pits. Bill?
This is a really neat contraption they have in here. This computer tells all the diagnostics from inside the Appy and Geronimo. What are we looking at here exactly?
Right now we're looking at N1 and N2 speeds of the motor. The N2 is the one we're more worried about, which is the power we're putting down to the prop. We also take a look at his water speed, and we're looking at his fuel flow.
That's interesting stuff. Looks like the inside of a cockpit to me. Oh wait, it is the inside of a cockpit. Steve?
All right, Bill, ever observant as you are. Thanks, Bill Wixie. We're just inside of 3 minutes now as the clock start continues on. And guys, while we have a minute and they're scoring up, the boats out there, I think, have just about, and I don't mean the hydroplanes, I mean the pleasure craft, look like they have all but moved into position out there. What's it going to mean for the race course, Scott?
It is going to roughen the race course up tremendously. And that's what happened to us last year. We've had tremendous water conditions up to this point, and it looks like for this heat it's still going to be pretty good. But there's nothing to stop those boats behind them to keep moving, and they're going to continue to move all the way up to our 410 final, and it's just going to continually deteriorate.
Mike Fitzsimmons, what do you look for in this race?
Well, I look for a good start on the part of Mitch Evans. I look for some speed on the part of Mark Evans. To translate what Fred Leland was saying, we made some adjustments. We hope we do better. That means we put in a very powerful engine, and we're going to slam somebody this time. And I think that's exactly what he's got in mind. I think the boat's going to be fast this time out. I was just taking a look at Mark on his warm-ups, and I think he's ready to go quick. The real question goes across the start too soon, because I think these guys are going to be starting, Scotty, pretty close together and pretty fast this time.
Well, again, you know, it's that Seattle jitters that we all talked about, and if they physically don't live here, their boat is most certainly based here. Their sponsors are here, and the guys just need to simmer down. And you know, Steve David, if they'll just follow him, he's pretty darn experienced in this. He'll make a good start.
Yeah, he's the cool hand Luke in this particular one, and he's leading them on down into turn number 1 now as we come up with about a minute and 15 seconds before our start, about 15 seconds before the 1 minute gun. Everybody cruising through the lower side of the race course. Not all of them, of course, through the corner. Steve David is down in the turn, but it looks like Nate Brown and Mark Evans are just going to do some circle backs out there as they head back up to the race course. There's your 1 minute gun. Again, they're starting north just a tad early for this 2 mile course, as much speed as these guys are able to make. What I'm really looking for, Scott, is for one of these guys to figure that out, get down into the turn and just stomp on it, come up and do a real slingshot affair and hit the line with some speed. But thus far, everybody's been a little bit green at the starting, and they thus are moving a little bit slower as they roll up into the corner.
They're 20 seconds early right here. You can see this is where you want to be at 20 seconds, and they're sitting at 31 seconds, so they're 10 seconds too early. The reason that the Appian's swinging way outside right now is he's going laterally, trying to burn off time, but they're plenty early.
They are indeed early. Lumar is very wide, and I think that's exactly what Nate is thinking. If he can get a good angular run at the start, he'll have more straightaway to work with and use a little bit more speed for a longer period of time. Maybe lead it into the first corner first. Here they come, lane number 1. It's going to be the Pico, lane number 2. Steve David, lane 3. Mitch Evans, the outside. Here comes the Lumar coming on strong as they come across the line. We're zeroed out. Looks like a fair start from this position.
A good start.
As they come rocketing into the first corner, Stephen David, and on his outside, Mitch Evans. They're pulling through the turn at this point. Mark is in there also on the inside of the Pico American Dream. As you can see, all three of them coming out together. Got a great run down the back chute now, and here comes on the outside the superior acceleration starting to show on the Appian Geronimo as Mitch Evans starts to pull ahead. Second place, Stephen David, and on the inside in third place, it is the Pico, and in there tucked out about fourth place, about 5 boat lengths back, it is the Lumar. Here they come through the corner now. Beautiful picture in the turn as these race boats start to connect together and hook up sponson to sponson on the outside with a little bit of air underneath the race boat. Mitch Evans has got some speed as he comes across the line to lead him first. Second place coming across the line, it is the Tweetons RV. Third place Pico, fourth place Lumar. Lumar's a bit of a disappointment. Thought she'd be a little bit quicker in this one. Back down into the turn they go, and a little bit of water flying.
Looks like we lost a wing.
Looks like the wing on the Appian Geronimo appears to have gone skyward.
They put up a flare there.
Tail fins too. That's really not necessary to fire a flare, it seems.
They think that there was a crash. There was not an accident. He lost his wing.
Red flags are showing that'll shut this heat down.
But the Pico had also lost power then in the turn, up and running again. Geronimo, meantime, I believe, is missing the entire rear wing.
Everything's gone. All the tail feathers are missing on the Geronimo, as you can see. And Geronimo's still racing, I might add, also. And he's going to be real surprised to see a red flag. He's going to be wondering why this is. But in any event, even though he shed some pieces, there was nobody hurt. I think somebody thought on the tower that somebody was hurt, that some driver may have been in danger. The red flag is showing the heat actually should be shut down, but I believe they've radioed to the drivers, go ahead and go. Go ahead and go, because nobody has. This should be a situation where the boats would be shut off, and they are not, so I'm concluding that the UHRA folks have told them, go ahead and race.
Well, Mark Evans got hosed in that deal because he did what the rules say. When a red flag comes out, he's shut down.
Yep.
And then he restarted. Now he's in fourth place, and he has one heck of an argument to put up.
Yes, he does. He should be an unhappy guy. He has all kinds of cause. Look for a rhubarb about that. Mitch Evans, meanwhile, is your leader. He was also the guy that shed the tail feathers down in turn number 1, and he's going to wind up getting the checkered flag right here. So they showed the red, and now they're showing the checker. Mitch Evans in the Appian Geronimo sands the tail fins and the wing. Here he comes across the line to score 400 more points. Second place, Steve David in the Freddy's Club. And third place, Mark and Nate are battling. Let's see what happens. Mark's trying to make up some distance here. Nate is a little bit on the disabled side. His boat has not been fast. Let's see if the Pico's going to be able to do it by the time they get to the start-finish line. Nate stomps on it. Mark stomps on it. Going to be close. Looks like the Pico might just, maybe, no, and not enough. It doesn't look like the Pico did it. It's virtually a photo finish. Did they?
I think they did.
From my angle, it did not appear.
He was coming hard in the Lumar. Nate Brown had it way out of shape as he came by you, Mike.
It appeared it certainly was a photo finish from this end. You have a different angle on it than I, of course, down there in the start-finish line, or the pits from the start-finish line. But it appeared as though we saw more yellow than blue across the line from our vantage point.
Well, and I tell you, the colors that I expect Mark Evans is going to be seeing is red, and Fred Leland as well. And let's find out, too, because, you know, this boat is heading into the first turn. He can't possibly see the red flare way behind him. I doubt could hear the gun to stop it, but could he have been radioed instantly and said, shut it down?
The radio man told him there was a red flag. He did what he was told to do, which was shut the boat down. Now, that's the rules. Everyone else should have shut down. They actually should penalize the other 3 guys and give the race to Mark, but we'll see what happens.
You saw the U-20 tail fin just floating in the water. Meantime, Steve David in Freddy's Casino boat is slowing down and moving in back to the pits and continuing out on the course for what looks to be yet another lap is Mark Evans.
They just waved the checkered flag to Mark as he went by, but he does still appear to be out there racing.
And the party on the Appian Geronimo continues. This is Jerry Rice, the owner of the Appian boat. He's out there on his yacht and has some of his closest friends in various stages of unclothed and clothed, all having a good time and celebrating, tailless or not, the Geronimo's win, at least it appears at this point, unofficially in Heat 2B. But again, stand by as we wait to see what happens with the red flare. Bill Wixie to the pits.
Standing by with John Walters, the crew chief for the Appian Geronimo. And John, what happened there? What did you see?
Well, just as Mitch was coming into the first turn down here, I saw the wing A-frame start to roll over a little bit, and that's generally a case, you know, where lots of bad things can happen to the boat ride. The wing tends to free the front end up a little bit and let it fly over the lumps and bumps. And as you can see right here, he's coming into the straightaway, and the left side has already failed. And this is just about where I saw it right here, where I was on the outside and I saw the outside fairing start to tip inside. When that happens, and the aerodynamics start to go away from the back end of the boat. It rolls the boat over on the nose real hard, and then he hits all the lumps and bumps instead of being able to fly over those. So my biggest concern right now was two things. One is, of course, fire. The wing gets in the way of the exhaust, and of course it can burn. The other thing is that we got a really nice propeller on the back end of the boat, and when all that stuff starts shedding off the back end, sometimes it takes out a really good propeller. So we got our fingers crossed we were lucky.
Is it fixable? Are you going to get this thing ready to go for the fun?
Yeah, it's definitely fixable. The A-frames and the wing assemblies is something that we kind of use and look at as exposable parts, or they just get themselves trashed lots of times. So we've got more parts in the truck, and we're going to borrow a small wing from our friends down the road there, the U-19 guys. So
real good. Congratulations, John. Here's Mitch Evans right here. Mitch, congratulations. And what happened out there?
Well, I don't know, actually. I mean, the boat ride was pretty good, but I took a pretty good hop down this lower turn. It looks like I just shucked the upright off of it, so it makes for a pretty bad boat ride.
How does that affect the boat with the rollers and such out there with no back tail fin?
It's tough because that's a lot of downforce in the rear end of the boat, and it tends to put it on the snow, so I was having to use the canards to help me get through the turns. I just coasted there to make sure that I didn't swap ends with the boat.
Why didn't you stop when the flare went off?
I didn't see a flare, actually.
Didn't see the flare. Yeah. Well, there you go. Send it over to the other side of the pits. Tony Ventrella.
Back with down there with Steve David, who apparently didn't see a red either, right?
No, I mean, all it was the wing came off the Appian boat, and Freddie's would have seen that because we got all kinds of spy cameras, but we didn't see that, no.
So second place, it's not a first, but you're coming up. Did you get more speed out of that second engine?
Yeah, we sure did. It's just we're progressing on the day, and come the final, that's when Freddie's got to win.
Okay. Thank you, Steve David.
Thank you, and thanks to my friends at Diamond Pete, who are there in the trailer with you.
All right, okay.
Tony, thanks.
Okay.
Now what we really want to do is we want to find out, what did Mark Evans see and know. We'll find that out in a moment. First, here's Bill Rocky with the Lumar camp.
Nate, that was the first rough ride of the day. It was bumpy out there.
Yeah, it was pretty bumpy. I was in the slop. I kind of got caught off guard. And I want to know from the referees, I mean, you're supposed to have 10 feet between boats, and I was sitting about 12 feet or 14 feet, and Steve David just snuck right up in there. So I guess if that's the rules, little Chihuahua's going to have a little bit of a dog pin on his hand. But speaking of animal.
All right, Curly made that trip.
Curly made that trip. I'll tell you, he had fun. He's not even scared this time. We got some hull work to do. Looks like some yellow duct tape's going to come out of the old crate, and hopefully the Lumar window film boat will get back on the water for the next heat.
Nate has a little minor damage on the front end of the boat there, Steve, and I'm sure they'll patch that up and be ready for their next heat.
Bill, thank you. Here are the unofficial results, and again, there's going to be some explaining to do somewhere along the line, and I have yet to hear it. The Appian Geronimo, unofficially in the U-20 boat, tailless and all, wins Heat 2B. Again, the results unofficial. Steve David and the Freddy's Club in second place. The Lumar Windows film with Nate Brown in third. And the Pico American Dream, Mark Evans boat, the U-100, which appeared to stop and then start again. So let's go down to Bill Wixie and find out, what did the Pico team know. Bill?
Your brother's...
Go wherever you want to go, Bill. I'm with you, man.
Or did you just slow down?
I saw the wing come up. I thought it was Steve David. Then the guy said red flag. And I thought, what the heck? I'm looking to see who was over, So I got off of it and was waiting for word.
And I'm standing by here with the owner of the U-19, Fred Leland. Fred, what did you see from your perspective, and did you think everything went fairly in that race?
Well, no. They threw a flag on the start boat, red flag right off. Then they put one up in the corner. And two of my people seen that they shot a red flare off over by the start line somewhere on the shore. And so we're arguing over it.
All right. But where will this lead, do you think?
Hard to tell.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Fred. Steve?
All right. Is it hard to tell, Scott? Where is this going to lead if Fred argues the point?
Well, he'll argue it all day long. It'll probably lead to nothing, but he does have, for once, a really good argument.
Yeah, the wing is coming in from the Geronimo boat, being brought in by one of the craft, the safety craft out here, and there are lots of them, folks. This is not just helter-skelter. This course is very well patrolled and controlled by Coast Guard and shore and all the rest. While they bring parts in, we'll continue to work on the story for you, find out if, in fact, the Evans camp and the Pico camp, do they have an argument? Can they win it? More hydroplane racing in a minute.
I know what you're going to tell me, but I'm going to ask.
Heat 2B has been brought to you by the ultimate place to satisfy all your wants. AM, PM. Too much good stuff. And presented for Seafair by Millstone Gourmet Coffee. Fresh roasted taste, whole bean coffees.
back at Seafair 98. You're watching part of the Auric XL flight team, part of the air show here at Lake Washington, and we've got a trophy presentation for Heat 2B.
Cascade Coffee, the exclusive distributors of Millstone Coffee, is proud to present Mitch Evans with the Appian Geronimo boat as the winner of Heat 2B. Exciting race, Mitch. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. On behalf of my team, everybody from Appian, it's great to have sponsors like this support us, and without them we wouldn't be here. Thank you.
The lifeblood is sponsorship, of course, in this sport. Always looking for it. Meantime, no stranger to controversy either. And Mike Fitzsimmons at the start-finish line. We'll talk more now about the red flag.
Okay, I'm with Rick Sandstrom, UHRA referee, and Rick. When the tail feathers of the Appian went skyward down in turn number 1, you fellows fired the flare here. We had a red flag displayed in one corner, one also on the boat across from us. And Mark Evans saw it and slowed down as the rules say he should. He feels as though he was deprived of an opportunity to race there.
Well, a couple things. The flare was not fired by us. Unfortunately, inadvertently, the flare was fired by the Coast Guard when they saw pieces of the 20 come off. And there was a red flag on the tower. Mark had been penalized 1 lap for taking out a buoy in turn 2 already, so basically the outcome, nobody seemed to slow down. We can look at the times, and there was no different order of finish. He had an extra lap to go, so the red flag needs to be called from the tower. We need to shut things down from the tower. We have communication into the pits with drivers' reps from each one of the teams, and it really did not figure in the outcome of that.
So we have too many flare guns up here.
Yeah, unfortunately we do. But the Coast Guard governs this water, and they apologized profusely, but they saw parts and pieces fly and inadvertently shot the flare off.
Rick, thanks very much. It appears as though Mark Evans was already in trouble with the law by the time that happened anyway, so his complaint isn't going to get very far. Rick, back to you.
All right, Mike, thanks. Let's turn it over to Tony Ventrella now, who's in the Bud Camp.
Yes, we are. We're down here with a different perspective, the Lauren perspective here in the Bud Camp. You guys saw something different. You don't think the Pico shut down at all, but something else happened.
Well, what I saw coming in this turn, the Appian started losing the wing, and when it came off, it let off a big spray in the air. And at the same time, Steve David kind of took his lane he was able to take. Here we see him coming down the straightaway, and I don't know how much time you have, but we'll probably see it. Everything flexing in here, and it looks like this one over here is actually broken. You can see that the one on our right broken, his left. There it folds over. Steve David is pretty much crowding lane 1, and as he turns the boat, we're probably going to see the wing blow into the air here any second. But behind you, what you don't see is Steve David over against that yellow buoy taking his lane because he had the overlap, and as the wing comes off, I think somebody probably thought he flipped and maybe it hung up a flag or whatever. But in the meantime, Mark will be going through the rooster tail of Steve David. You can see how much overlap he has. He has 15 bull lengths, so he's plenty legal to be over here towards lane 1. And you'll see Mark Evans actually go through his rooster tail, as I saw it from the outside, and that's how he lost power. If he's claiming that he shut down because there was a red flag, well, he's pretty quick because, as you can see, that hasn't happened yet. So he's in the midst of going through the rooster tail here, and there he goes. Yep. This hasn't happened yet over here, really. So he anticipated a red flag. He's quite good.
Okay, Lauren. I can't believe it. We have two opinions that don't exactly jive. They don't agree with each other.
There's something about this.
I'm sticking with it, and I'm sure he'll stick with it.
But I love Lauren's explanation.
There's only one problem with that explanation. The 2 boats Lauren says are supposed to be out front aren't.
Okay, Mike says you're full of baloney.
Okay, well, I'll say happy birthday to my wife, Berlene, as you do, I'm sure, and we'll catch you next round.
Which is the real reason he wanted to come out in the first place.
That's exactly right.
See you guys later.
All right, Tony and Lauren, and happy birthday wishes, and this is the sport of boat racing, friends. And we've got more heats yet to come. We've got air show, and we've also got lots of repairs to the Appian Geronimo. We'll be back.
Subway is giving away trips for 2 to Reno and Lake Tahoe. 4 great vacations will be given away, and coming up this afternoon, we will award one of those vacation packages right here. The prize includes 2 sets of golf clubs from Play It Again Sports, airfare on Southwest Airlines, and accommodations at the El Dorado Hotel. So don't go away. That big announcement is coming up later this afternoon.
All right, Mike Fitzsimmons, Steve Rabel, along with Scott Pierce and a cast of thousands, bringing you the regatta on the lake. Seafair 1998, the Texaco Cup, and while we watch the Auric XL flight team here and pilot Frank Ryder over the waters of Lake Washington, there are folks on the waters of Lake Washington who are enjoying themselves immensely. Partying continues on the log boom, and Brian Wood is there.
You know, people who've been out to Seafair before know this is the place to be, to watch both the action on the water and in the air. And some wonderful places in style. We've got some nice boats out here, 30, 35, 25 feet. Nothing to complain about. Let me show you one. Take a look over here, Mark. How about the Charade, 153 feet. What a beautiful ship. Take a look at that. You can land a helicopter on the back. Let's see, who could own that? Paul Allen. Yep, that's one of Paul Allen's mega yachts. He just bought another one, bigger. The 199-foot yacht Medusa. He took up the Amazon River with pop star Peter Gabriel and even recorded some things in a professional recording studio. This is probably the dinghy for that. The Charade, a beautiful boat, 153 feet. We tried to see if Paul Allen had let us on. First of all, we don't know if Paul Allen's on, and nobody really wanted to let our cameras on. I can't imagine why, Steve.
Neither can I, Brian. If Mr. Allen is there, it's been a busy weekend for him because he was at the Seahawk game last night. Of course, his new football team, he was at a big fundraiser on Friday night for Seahawk Charity. So this indeed has been a busy weekend for Paul Allen and a fun weekend for everybody else. Enjoying themselves on a nice sunny day here. The 48th time the Hydros have been here to Lake Washington, and we're all having a great time. Hope you are too. Stand by. More on Kiro 7 as Seafair Sunday continues.
July 19th, Norfolk, Virginia. Over 100,000 sun-baked fans saw Miss Budweiser roar to its 3rd straight victory this year in the Virginia is for Lovers Cup. However, this win did not come easily for Dave Villwatt. Mark Evans in the Pico American Dream raced side by side for 2 laps before striking a turn buoy. The penalty allowed Mark Webber in the piston-powered Master Tire to finish 2nd, while Pico finished 3rd despite the 1-lap penalty.
You're looking at a lovely shot here. This is what it looks like from behind one of these big boats. And you see that thing right there? That's what makes these boats go so fast. That's called a turbine engine. They're helicopter engines, and this happens to be a very special year for hydro racing. 25 years ago, a new boat came on the scene that revolutionized the sport. A tribute now to the immortal U-95. They had always sounded like this. Thunderboats roaring down Lake Washington, powered by huge Rolls, Merlin, and Allison engines. But 25 years ago, that started to change.
In those days, that was the biggest question, whether the turbine had enough power, whether the boat would actually go on a plane and actually motivate itself around a race course.
The boat was simply called the U-95, sleek, white, and nothing like anyone had ever seen before. It was the dream of Seattle businessman Jim Clapp. He'd already put turbines in his own yacht. Now he desperately wanted to prove they'd work in a hydro too.
I met Jim Clapp through my friend Chuck Lightford, who became my boat manager.
Clapp assembled a stellar crew that included young driver Leif Borgerson.
More than any one thing, I think, of that boat and that program was the technology, the people that came together, professionals. He was not at all scared to spend whatever it took to prove his point. And he was determined, dedicated, way ahead of his time.
The U-95 had two-way communications, onboard video, and the most advanced design ever. And yes, it had turbines, twin turbines.
A lot of people don't realize that we actually had originally designed, and the concept was for one large engine, and unfortunately during that period, the Vietnam conflict, the military had everything tied up.
The
first test drive came in September 1973, but Jim Clapp never got to finish his dream. He died just months before his futuristic boat could ever reach the starting line. But his dream didn't die. Jim's widow, Pamela, took over leading the team. Their first season started in the spring of 1974. The U-95 finished 5th, then 3rd, then 2nd. Then in Tri-Cities, they got run over by hydro legend Bill Muncy. There was massive damage, too much to repair before the Gold Cup in Seattle the following week. The only choice? Race without a tail section.
We brought the boat here and it was miserable. It hopped, it leaped, it jumped. It was just uncontrollable.
And that was it, the end of the U-95. In the choppy waters off Sand Point, disaster.
When the T-wheel let go, there was a very, very loud explosion in the boat. A lot of flames. Pieces went everywhere. It basically chopped the boat almost in half.
One of U-95's Lycoming turbines literally blew up. Bergerson got out safely, but the boat wasn't as lucky. It sank to the bottom of the lake.
Time flies, I'll tell you. It's amazing. I look at my
25 years later, Leif Bergerson returned to Sandpoint. He hadn't been there since that fateful day, and he used the time to reflect back.
I think it's a gratitude to Jim. I'm really glad to see Jim get the recognition that he really deserves for bringing in a different concept, different ideas, and the sport eventually going that direction and seeing all that happen.
Wow, it must be great for all the old hydro fans watching here on the shorelines and, of course, watching here on Kiro 7 to see those old pictures. You know the history of this sport. You know how, as kids, a lot of you came down over the hill from the Rainier Valley area down to the waterfront when you heard those big old automotive engines. Well, now it's helicopter engines, and who knows, maybe someday it'll go back to automotive engines. We'll know in the near future, probably. Meantime, the boat racing schedule right now means we talk to Nate Brown in the Miss Lumar camp.
Actually, we got Nate's better side here, Larry Franson, the crew chief, who's busy right now working on a little damage. What happened here in that last heat?
Well, as best we can tell, we think Appian lost a wing, and Nate had to take an evasive maneuver. Evidently, part of the wing hit on the bullnose of our boat. It's pretty much cosmetic. Hopefully, we can get it fixed and get out for the next heat.
So that was done by, not by water, but maybe by that part of the boat, huh?
Hard to tell. You know, rooster tails and water's in the air. It's hard to see exactly what happened, but we did see a wing come off in that corner, and Nate said he did have to swerve right to avoid hitting something, so that's the best we can tell at this point.
As you know, we got a camera in your boat here. We're taking a look at the onboard camera here. Maybe we can see something here. Tell me what you see.
Well, I can see Appian is on the inside there. Haven't seen a wing come in yet, but we should see Nate turn here real quick. He should take a right to avoid something. There's a boat coming in real close. They may have clipped in the corner. Really hard to say at this point. A lot of water in the air.
That is one angle we don't get to see here on the beach.
Oh, that's incredible, isn't it?
What is some of this stuff? What do you got going here?
This is just a quick 15-minute epoxy. Again, we had mostly cosmetic damage, so we're just going to try and glue it down real quick, put an aluminum doubler over it, try hold everything in place.
And you see Nate's bouncing all over the place here. That was a rough ride for you guys.
That's pretty typical for Seattle. We get a lot of rough stuff once we get 4 or 5 boats out there.
So you can see his head's bouncing quite a bit. Well, thanks a lot, and it looks like this is just a minor sprain. It'll be ready to go, right?
We'll have it ready. We're ready for the final.
Okay, thanks a lot. Back to you, Steve.